Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the scene, the Connecticut sports scene. This is Joe Ryan. We've been on a little bit of a break, but we're back tonight, and our first guest tonight will be the head lacrosse coach of Stamford High, Mike Nazzaro. Welcome, Coach Nazzaro. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks.
Good. You just finished your 7th season with the team, made it to the playoffs. Talk to me about the season, how it went.
You know, this year we had kind of high expectations for the kids. I think part of what we were trying to do with them was get ourselves to compete for, the city championship first, and obviously looking onward to that for the state championship. I mean, we know that in the FCAC it's hard to get a run at an actual state championship title, so we just like to qualify for the tournament. We were able to get in with 7 wins. And 23 teams made it. We were 22, at the bottom of that tier, and we thought it was a successful season for us. But we just want to use this as a measuring stick to be able to hang as a carrot, in front of the younger kids, so they can kind of build that up from there. How
about the roster this year? Was it senior laden? Was it a good mix? So you got a relative good crew coming back that experience? Yeah,
we're going to have about 20 seniors next year. This year we had 12. We started off with 14. 2 decided that they weren't going to play, and early season we started off with some injuries. So 2 of our junior starters got hurt with season-ending injuries. 1 right before the McMahon game, and 1 in our Shelton scrimmage at the beginning of the season. So 2 of those guys, Braden Davis and Zach Apollon, they were done for the season. So we had to kind of fill some spots there, but we'll have them back next year. They'll be healthy, and a big senior class coming in. I think that being somewhat senior heavy overall this year has given kind of a ambition to compete for some spots next year.
Let's take it back 7 years when you first took over the program. Coaches always talk about putting their program in, coming in with philosophies, things like that. When you first got to Stamford High, with what you got, where the program was at, what was kind of your philosophy coming in the door?
So the philosophy was first off was to tap into the athleticism and the talent that I saw in the hallways and on the football field and the basketball court, so on and so forth. But secondly, my philosophy has always been 3 simple things: is kind of be on time, work hard, and have fun. And those 3 things to incorporate as coaches, making sure my staff understands those 3 things, making sure that practices incorporate those 3 things, and translate that to game settings. We're not a top dog by any means in the lacrosse world, whether it's the country or even just the state. However, we do play against some of the better teams in the country. Yeah, so definitely. If we can preach the have fun, the be on time, and the work hard, that fun aspect of it, I think, is what helped create somewhat of a culture at the school. And kids started, instead of shying away from me, trying to pull them from the hallways, like, oh no, I don't want to play, it became, hey coach, how can I play? And eventually we went from, I think when Jeremy White left, 45-ish kids. I think within 2 or 3 years, we had almost, 80 kids or so coming out for the team. And I think that philosophy kind of helped them.
A lot of lacrosse has taken off. It's become a big spectator sport, especially the college, championships pull everybody in. Around this area is a lot of interest in it. But there are a lot of people that watch the sport and don't really understand what's going on up there.
Right.
They see all the action and stuff, and it looks somewhat helter-skelter, but there is a plan behind everything that's going on up there.
For sure.
If you could just break down lacrosse a little bit for the people that don't know much about lacrosse.
So in simplest terms, for guys lacrosse, it's a 10-on-10 game. You have a goalie in each net, so that becomes 9-on-9 field players. You can have 6 on one side of the field at a time. You're allowed a maximum of 4 long sticks on the field at a time, and basically, when you see all those guys subbing off and on the field during the fly, that is a team changing over their defensive personnel to their offensive personnel, or vice versa. Whistles and stuff like that are kind of broken down into infractions. If there's a loose ball penalty, usually it's just a change of possession for a team. If there's a penalty that occurs, like a slash in the head or a cross check, and someone has the ball on their stick, that's a time-serving penalty, becomes a power play like hockey. So it actually is pretty simple when you look at it. and it's a very, very intelligent game. You look at teams like Maryland and Hopkins and Yale and all these teams that are competing for these national championships. They are the best lacrosse schools are also the best academic schools. And even in the NESCAC, the Division III level, Amherst and Bowdoin and Bates and Tufts and those schools, those are your best schools at the Division III level. And that is the intelligence aspect of the game. There's a lot of things going on at once, like you said, helter-skelter, but it is controlled chaos, and there's a lot of intellect to be brought to the game, and it teaches kids a lot about team sports and working together, I think more so than some other sports.
Yeah, it's funny. You said how everybody equates it with hockey, but it also equates with basketball in a lot of ways. And people don't, until you watch with the picks and the screens and everything they watch. The two sports. It's funny how it melds into with lacrosse.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the draw for lacrosse to kids is the incorporation of all the sports, and the selling point as a coach is also that incorporation. We can pull from the hockey team and say, listen, your stick work's going to be great because you already know how to handle a hockey stick. We can pull from the basketball court because of the pick game and the 2-on-2 aspect. Essentially, the game breaks down from a 6-on-6 to a 5-on-4 to a 4-on-3, 3-on-2, 2-on-1, and hopefully a 1-on-0 with the goalie. So all those fast movement type things are also incorporated in sports like soccer. You're moving the ball, you're crossing the ball, you're changing direction. Basketball with the picks, shooting and stick work of hockey, and then a modified version of hitting with football, more so on a blocking end because you're not allowed to wrap and tackle.
What I've always found the most incredible thing, and you touched on it a little bit before, is the choreography on the sideline of, like you say, switching the players to defense to offense. And I've seen a coach try and do it by himself, and that is almost an impossible task.
Yeah, it is. It is, especially when you got kids, itching to get on the field. We have usually, on our varsity team, we have, a defensive coordinator, we have an offensive coordinator, and then we have a face-off coach and kind of like a specialty coach. And that specialty coach or that face-off coach usually for us will be a guy who can run the box. And running the box is literally just knowing your personnel, designating when you give that coach the depth chart before the game, what kids are the first midline, what kids are the second midline, who you want prioritizing going in at defense, on offense, and you have to keep the field balanced because in competitive games there's 3 referees, one who's watching the box. So you at one point or another can't have, if you get that 11th guy on the field, that's too many men on the field, that's a penalty. So that on-the-fly thing, the box has to be clear, clean, and it's a tough job. We put a lacrosse stick down the side so the kids know to stay on that side of it unless they're subbing in. And
one other thing, we're going to get into a lot more, but my favorite term is the FOGO.
Yeah, FOGO. Yeah, the face-off, get-off. I mean, that developed over the past decade mostly, and a lot of FOGOs call themselves face-off specialists.
Yeah.
They like that term better. The FOGO get-off, face-off get-off guy. It really is a specialty position, and the people like us love it because it's like that's what you're doing. But kids are like, oh, well, that's not all I want to be doing because they want to be scoring goals. But now it's gotten to a point where these kids are pushing the ball in transition and scoring goals and really changing momentum in games.
Well, I remember if a kid ever puts it down, I'd be like crazy because I saw a kid with Wilton, I think it was 3 years ago, that went full ride to Providence on a FOGO, and he was a FOGO.
Yeah.
And I watched him against Norwalk at night. He was phenomenal. I think he, if I measured it right that night, I think he won 27 out of 30 faceoffs.
It's very possible.
It was amazing. And another story I got about, I was covering Fairfield University when they had that very good year a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And Ohio State came in.
Oh.
And the Ohio State FOGOs never went in for halftime. They just went and stayed out there practicing.
Yeah. So the FOGOs and the face-off kids, they if they're dedicated to their craft and they want to master that craft. I mean, we had Stephen Phelps 2 years ago who came to us. He's playing at LaSalle right now. But these kids will get whistle cadences, and they'll put them on their headphones, and they can sit in their living room or in their backyard and just listen to whistles and just practice clamping. And it's a very focused position. Yeah, it's a very focused position, and it really is a specialty position, and it is one of the most valuable positions. I mean, you look at this kid, T.D. Ireland, who plays for Yale. He went 19 for 19 in one of the NCAA tournament games, broke a record, and he doesn't lose,
Right.
And obviously they were able to, Yale didn't win this year, but, he was dominant, and he went from UAlbany to Yale just transferring between the schools, and he was just taking face-offs.
Oh, it's all about possession in the game. I mean, the more you possess the ball, the more you keep it away from everybody else.
Yeah.
Now go back when you're building a program. I know you want all three phases of the team to function at a high level. But is it better to get the defense set first and then work about the offense later, or or do you focus on everything, or is there one way do you want to build?
My main thing is, right now I try to just build athletes at first, and I don't really. I kind of look at positions based on strengths of the kids in their different sports and what I see on the field. We've had kids come out and given them a short stick and seen them play defense and give them a pull. So there's really not a rhyme or reason. I will take, speed over anything. And traditionally, a lot of people think that, the slow kid is going to be in goal, or, the big football bruiser is going to be at defense. And that might hold true in some points. You want a linebacker playing defense, but you really want guys, on defense mostly that can move. So it's really all about judging the athleticism, and I kind of just build around kind of what we're given. Next year I think we're going to be stronger offensively, so I'm going to focus on developing, that defense so I can get some more athletes in there to kind of make plays versus have skill down there. So it kind of just is where there's a will, there's a way, and we find kids based on their athleticism and place them where they can be. And then it becomes a nice little group that's ready to work.
Yeah, now let's put it all together here. Being in the FCAC, I mean, you have nationally ranked teams you're playing against. You have teams with kids that have, they've been programmed to be lacrosse players since they were little kids, and a lot of your kids now, I think the Stamford Youth Program, a lot of it through your efforts, is turning around where you are turning out kids that are getting in the exposure to the sport at an earlier level, which pays such dividends. I mean, talk about that alone.
Part of that is, back when I first got hired, Stamford Lacrosse Association was fairly new. And Pete Hansen, who has a daughter and a son who play for West Hill Lacrosse, he's done a great job building it. George Talboys, prior to myself, was at West Hill, and he helped start it out early, and now what it's become is it is creating a culture of kids that can play. Problem being, you have such a pool of kids and so many schools that kids are choosing to go to. Some of them want to go to private schools, some of them go to Stamford High, some of them go to West Hill. So part of that ends up becoming, okay, which kids are distributed for where, and how can we focus on building those kids and playing together? If you get 6 kids from the youth program and 3 of them go here and 3 of them go there, then it's kind of like, all right, what did we work for? But now at the younger levels, in the bantams, which are like the 3rd and 4th graders, there are 40 kids out there. So if we can get a good pool of those kids playing together from 2nd and 3rd grade coming up through our schools, I think we're going to see more of a difference 4 or 5 years down the road versus 2 or 3 years down the road.
Well, I mean, we can even go into your background, because you got an early start in lacrosse because of your father. And if you give a little of your story there, because I think people in the area, like I said, baseball and softball have dominated Stanford forever, and it's only been the last decade that you really started scratching the surface. Let's get a little bit about your story and how you got involved in lacrosse.
So I was, my father played club lacrosse at Southern Connecticut, and then ended up going to Fairfield U for grad work, and ended up helping out coaching wrestling and lacrosse there as a grad assistantship. Once I was born, I played baseball. I'm from Trumbull, Little League World Series with Drury and all that. I was on the 10-year anniversary team of the '89 World Series team. So '99, we went to Bluefish Stadium, and we got to walk out with Chris Drury and a bunch of the players from that Little League team. And that was my last year playing baseball, because my father had started a lacrosse program in Trumbull. It was just called Trumbull Lacrosse Association. Now it's called TYL, Trumbull Youth Lacrosse. But he put me in a Wakeman's program prior to that, which is in Fairfield.
Right.
And I got killed. And I was like, I don't like this sport. I'm not good at it, because I was playing with all the Westport and all the Fairfield kids who had been playing. And he was like, oh, well, it's okay. You're going to get some experience, because I'm going to start a team next year. So I had gotten a bunch of my friends, and he had told me, hey, just get your buddies out. We're going to start a team. And we ended up going on, and we played a nice little schedule, and we enjoyed the game. And then we went into Trumbull High School. They were a 2-year program, I believe, from the point when I started playing. And me and two of my buddies ended up making the varsity team as freshmen, and we went all the way through. And the state used to be split into 2 tiers, so it was Division I, Division II. And we actually, my senior year, were able to win a state championship against New Fairfield. So it was a Division II title, and it made us feel accomplished and good, and a bunch of us went to go play in college. And I think just the passion that my father brought and the passion that we created as friends playing the game together kind of lit the fire and kept me where I am today, just coaching and loving the game.
You know, it always works this way in the FCAC, and you really can't resent either town, whatever. It seems like every sport has that 2 or 3 dominant teams, and it rotates. I mean, Stanford's always been basketball. Softball always has a great program, you know, things like that. When you look at today, the FCAC, what was Darien still the power when you were back then, or was that the time of Wilton, or what was going on back then?
It was Wilton and Staples were up there. You know, Ridgefield was still building. You know, Darien was obviously still good. You know, Norwalk and McMahon were very good. They have one of the older youth programs. You know, Norwalk Junior Lacrosse with Jack Couch and Mike Epstein were Norwalk High School, and Brian McMahon, and I remember they were powerhouses, and it's since shifted slightly. I mean, obviously you look at Norwalk and McMahon and you know, Darien and Wilton, and those teams, Darien and Wilton and Greenwich, all them have still risen, and we've kind of leveled out a little bit at the demographic that we're at. But, you know, just the development of the game in general is just great to see so many kids playing it and so many kids loving it. And I think it is the alternative. You know, some parents are concerned about kids playing football, and some kids, you know, with injuries and stuff like that. And it's just, the game has so much opportunity because it's still new, although it's like the oldest game in Native American play,
exactly.
right? So it's an old game, and it still is growing, you know, and I like that it's still growing, and I like to be a part of it in Stamford as well.
What kind of things are you looking for, and what's the next step in Stamford, do you think? Is there a way? I know you talked about getting the right athletes, because I've always said in any sport, if Stamford High, if you got every athlete out of the halls to play, they dominate almost every sport they want.
Right.
Is there a couple of year out program you're looking for to maybe step up a little bit, or is it? Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I think the main focus is for us to go into any game feeling that we can compete. I think it's tough when we go into the FCAC and we play teams like Darien and Greenwich and New Canaan, and, you know, although the kids say they want to play those games, there's still that element of defeat, you know, and there's still that element of, you know, okay, we know these kids are better than us, and we're going to kind of accept that, and some kids are going to try, and some kids are going to know where they stand. But I think the next level would be getting these youth kids into the high school and going into any game feeling at least that we can compete, you know, at least that we don't lose a game 18-3 or 17-4. And we've had some good games. I mean, we were luckily able to, you know, come through to McMahon and play them. You know, they came to us, and we ended up winning that game this year, which was great. And that's a competition of within ourselves that we want to win. And I think that moving forward, we look at Greenwich, and we look at Ludlow, and we look at Ward, and we look at those next level teams, and at least competing with them. I mean, 5-goal games, 6-goal games, something like that would be a next step for us. And who knows, you can squeak one out if you got a good group of kids who are willing to work for it.
Now, unfortunately, I was only able to come to your McMahon game this year. Your goalie had a phenomenal night that night. You talk about some of the kids this year that unfortunately are graduating that really had an impact on this year.
You know, I think there are 6 kids going on to play lacrosse at the collegiate level this year, which is great. Baylor being our goalie, he is going to Hartford Community College. It's a junior college down in Maryland. You know, he wants to work on his game a little bit and work on his grades and get himself into a higher level school, which I think is possible for him. And we have Q Langston, who was an attackman for us, also played football. He was a cornerback for Stamford High School. He's going to Post University. We have the Duquesne twins, who were recently talked about in The Advocate. They are, one of them is going to the University of St. Joe's, where Jim Calhoun went, and the other one is going to Albertus Magnus. And then we have David Marchuskevich. He was a DN for the football team at Stamford High School as well. He's going to Eastern Connecticut to go play. So it's a really great group of kids, and half of the senior class is going on to play somewhere in college, whether it's D2, D3, whatever. I think that they helped propel the program to us understanding that we can compete and win certain games, like the game you were at, the McMahon game. Unfortunately, we fell short in the state tournament to Southington. We lost a game in overtime, which was a tough one. But to be in a state game and get a play-in game that we could compete in, I think that was a great step for our program, and lets us kind of dangle that carrot in front of the younger kids and say, what are you going to do that's going to be better for that next year?
And like you said, lacrosse at the next level, at the college level, major colleges, very prestigious, universities compete in that, including the Naval and Army academies. Now, when you're preparing a kid and you see a kid that has some promise for it, do you specifically go out to him and identify and say, I think you have a chance to to really go on? Do you work with him on it?
Yeah, so, we do a lot of mentoring. We do a lot of one-on-one time with the kids and teaching them about accountability and just what this game can bring them. And I think early on, the first thing I tell every kid is, I use examples like Taekwon Bonaparte and Tamari Sterling, and kids that were early on able to go to college to play. Tamari Sterling actually has passed away. He had liver cancer a couple years ago, but Taekwon Bonaparte is one, and he played at Western Connecticut, and it's just, I can say to the kids as freshmen, this is what we've done at Stamford High School. This is how many kids we've had go to college to go play. Regardless of what level it's at, they're playing a college sport, and you have an opportunity here. So once I give that to them, then it becomes putting the building blocks of, okay, are you going to get your academics straight? That's the first thing. Are you going to show up and be on time and work hard when you're there? That's the second thing. And then are you going to obviously invest in yourself? And if you can do the little things like go and play wall ball and work on your stick work, the rest of everything is going to be applied in the game. You're already an athlete. What are you going to do to separate yourself from these kids like Darien and Wilton that are going to make you at least compete with them? And then that's when they start to get looks from colleges. And I think that the whole mentality of I want to go to play college lacrosse is something that we preach to these kids, and if they go do it, then awesome, but they need to have that sold to them at a young age so they can see the opportunity, because it's not going to happen, if they take a back seat freshman, sophomore, junior year, and then try senior year, it's too late. But if they start, freshman year, they can help bridge that gap, and then we feed that to them early.
Well, it's got to bring a lot of validity to your message, because the fact of the matter is you've been through it, you've done the path, and it's not like you did it 20 years ago.
Right.
You've done it very recently, so you know of what you speak, which is really important there.
Right.
Another thing that I think would have to help them a lot is the fact that as much as you say it's discouraging to play against a Darien, to play against a New Canaan, to play against, Greenwich, you're still playing against nationally ranked teams. Even if you're getting beat, it's got to maybe help them understand the speed of the game at the next level, what they're going to have to be at, the level they're going to have to be at if they really want to succeed at the next level. Do you believe that too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the kids, we have a film room at Stamford High School, and it's got a bunch of chairs set up, and we watch film before games, and we kind of put on highlights before games, and sometimes they're watching, Darien versus Manhasset, or Darien versus Yorktown, or New Canaan versus this team, and they're watching these kids and playing against them. So when they watch them on YouTube or whatever, and then they go and play against them, they do see what the game can look like. And then also, when we play those games, we teach the kids, especially the ones that we know are a little bit more skilled, we teach them to win the little battles, right? Guess what? This guy might be going to Hopkins to go play, or he might be going to Loyola to go play, but he's covering you. Can you win that matchup, or can you compete at that level and instill some confidence in yourself that, this kid might be the best player in the country or one of the top players in the country, but, I picked up a ground ball on him, or I scored on him, or, I beat him one-on-one. So if we can win those little battles, that's what we kind of feed to our kids to say, listen, you can do it individually. We need to be able to do it as a team in the future, but you can do this, you can compete, and show these guys something.
And you seem to be one of the only coaches, I don't want to say only coaches, but one of the few coaches you'll find around that cares about the kids playing other sports. You seem to encourage them to play other sports, whereas today it seems to be specialization. You know,
Yeah.
if you play basketball, they want you to play basketball 365, AAU, fall ball, then you play winter ball, then you go AAU, and it's a continual circuit. And it goes the same for baseball, football. Hockey was the first that really started that kind of way of doing things. Do you think we, as both a player, a former player, a coach, a mentor, do you think it's good for a kid to get a break from the sport, even though they might love lacrosse, to play another sport just to get away from it, put the stick down for a little bit, and see another aspect of the world?
I do. The stick down aspect, I don't believe in that. I mean, wall ball is the greatest thing that a kid can do. But the competitive level play year round, I think, is tough for kids. I love multi-sport athletes. I played lacrosse for all 4 years in high school. I did play freshman football, but I grew up playing every sport. And I chose personally to play lacrosse, but it wasn't like it was now. I mean, there wasn't travel team after travel team after travel team, and showcase after showcase. It was like, you went to a skills camp, you played in a fall league, and it was built around the other sports schedules. But multi-sport athletes are what we want. I mean, we're taking kids from other sports programs in the school and turning them into lacrosse players. So we like to respect and not interfere with what those sports are doing during their seasons. And should a kid choose to play one or the other year round, that's on that kid. We like to preach, obviously, the aspect of when it's your sport. If you're in the fall and it's football or soccer or basketball in the winter, anything that's scheduled for lacrosse, if you can get to it and you want to get to it, then okay, fine. But, that's the precedent, is the season that you're in. And one of the hardest sports that I see it in is basketball.
Right.
And it is very difficult to pull basketball players because I think every kid is fed the hoop dream mentality of, you might go D1 and you might go to the NBA, when in reality, the opportunity is not necessarily there for all those kids. So they're fed that through the AAU pool and the off-season basketball pool, that this is what they need to do to compete. And those programs are correct, because basketball is a very competitive sport. You got 5 guys on the court. So I think it's just a matter of encouraging kids to make sure that they are having fun, and letting them know that they're accountable in the off season, but we want you to be playing football and playing other sports, being coached by other coaches. I mean, that just brings out the athlete in any kid.
All right, well, we're almost out of time, but before we go, any program you're going to be running this Stamford that people should know about, or this summer that people should know about, could you sign up if their kids are interested?
Yeah, so we're doing, I have a program called CT City Lacrosse. We have a bunch of coaches that are unaffiliated with the high school guys, and we do camps and clinics and instruction and things to just help build the program in the city. A lot of youth camps, a lot of skill camps, brush up on the stick work and learn more about the game. College players, college coaches, high school coaches, and it's just something good for the kids to get involved in.
All right, Coach Nazzaro, it's a pleasure having you in tonight. Lacrosse is really growing in this area. It's a pleasure to cover it. Anyways, thank you for coming in tonight. It's always a pleasure covering you. I hope we were informative. I hope everybody liked having us back. This is Joe Ryan with the Connecticut Sports Scene. We will be back again soon. Coach Mike Nazzaro, the man with lacrosse.
Thank you.